Hello, David here at merchantaccounts.ca. Today I'm going to tackle the topic of what to do if your payment processor is holding on to your cash, how to get your money released. Stay tuned, we'll dig in 1 second. So when this happens, it's incredibly frustrating for merchants. You're running along, business is just humming along, and then your payment processor wants to just hold on to your money. And if it's the first time it's ever happened to you, it can be infuriating. Like, who are they to do this? Why would they do this? I'm not here to judge whether it's right or wrong. I'm just going to explain what happened and what you can do about it. So the very first thing we're going to figure out is, why is the payment processor holding your money? Sometimes they'll tell you, and sometimes depending on who your payment processor is, you might just get an email and your funds are held. And there's not even an explanation, which that's not reasonable. There should always be an explanation. But even if you don't get one, you can start thinking about, what are they going to be concerned about? And usually it's going to be something to do with chargebacks. Now, there's lots of content on the channel about what a chargeback is and why it happens. The short version is, if a merchant gets a chargeback, meaning your customer calls their bank and they dispute the transaction, hey, this merchant ripped me off, and hey, my bank, my card issuing bank, I want you to forcibly overturn this transaction and return the funds back to me, the cardholder, that's where a chargeback occurs. And if the merchant can't return the funds back to the cardholder, well, then the payment processor has to. So every transaction that you ever process, the payment processor is actually financially responsible for. The reason I'm giving this background is it's quite likely that there's some concern around chargebacks. So let's think about your business first of all. Have you had a big spike in chargebacks lately, like a lot of chargebacks? Or maybe you had one really high value chargeback, like you normally do $800 transactions, but you just did an $8,000 transaction and there was a chargeback. Or your chargebacks are normally okay, but they're trending in the wrong direction. These are things that could be causing cause for concern. Now again, in fairness, if this is a cause for concern, you should be told that this is a cause for concern, but I'm here in this video to try to help you figure out what might be going on behind the scenes. So your step one is try to figure out what has happened in your business, particularly around chargebacks or even the potential for chargebacks, that might cause them to be concerned. Make a note of that, and we're going to move on to our next point. So I just said that there might be a cause for concern. Well, let's talk about that a little bit as well. So there's something called the future delivery window in payment processing. And that's where people pay for something today, but they don't get it for a long time in the future. An example of that might be an airline ticket, because usually when you're buying a ticket to fly somewhere, unless it's last minute business travel, you're usually not traveling that day. And again, coming back to my earlier point, everything that you ever sell, the payment processor is financially responsible for making sure you give to your customers. So have you changed your business in some sort of way where you're taking more money up front? Or do you think possibly, and I've seen this happen sometimes, especially with aggregators, like, not to pick on names, but just some payment processors like PayPal tend to adjudicate, they review their risk reactively, meaning they don't ask a lot of questions up front, but once you get processing, sometimes questions come up as trading volumes increase or whatnot. Has your payment processor recently asked you any questions about your business? And did you explain that you're taking payments up front for something you're not delivering at some point in the future? That could possibly be another reason for funds being held while they're doing some sort of risk review or something like that. Now, I want to dig in with some actual advice. So really, when a payment processor is holding on to your funds, first of all, it's not acceptable to not give you a very clear explanation of why this was done and what you need to do to get those funds released. Anything short of that is unacceptable. And if you're being treated like that, it's a sign of a payment processor that you probably don't want to work with. But let's assume that you have the communication. Hey, we're worried because you've had a spike in chargebacks, or we notice your tickets have been very big, or hey, we thought you were selling this, but turns out you're actually selling something else that we didn't understand. So now what you need to do is you need to make a case to the payment processor about why you're not a risk. And one of the great starting points for this is to talk about your business. How long have you been in business? Who are your customers? Are they long-term returning customers that you have this great long-lasting relationship with? And another really important point, how financially solid is your company? It's like, look at these two versions of this story. Hey, yeah, we're a marketing company and we started last month and we've gotten a few clients and it's going well. And so our tickets have gotten bigger. That's version A. Here's version B. Yes, I'm a second generation owner of this furniture company, and we've been in business for 48 years, and have tons of returning customers. Obviously, the second story, from a risk perspective, is a lot better. So you want to let them know who you are, how long you've been in business, and who your customers are. And then you move on, very importantly, to the financials. How financially solid is your company? Is your company in a situation where they can just go to bed at night knowing that your customers are going to receive what they paid for? And the financials really demonstrate that, and I'll explain how. If a company is making $500,000 or $5 million a year, the processor is not going to be worried that you're going to disappear overnight. If it's a startup, it's a bigger challenge. And sometimes, I don't really want to switch too far down this topic, but sometimes I do work with startups, and they do take money up front. And so the way that you get around it is I'll ask, hey, could you take less money up front? Enough to secure the interest of your customer, so you're guaranteed to get the sale, and I don't want to choke you off from your cash flow, so take what you need, but can you push a slightly larger amount of that payment down the road to at the point of delivery, for example? In some businesses that works no problems. In some businesses it doesn't work. But this is where you can tweak your business model a little bit to stop taking so much money up front. Now, another thing you can do is talk about your anti-fraud. Maybe this is less about the financial shape of your business. Maybe it's less about them being worried that your customers will get what they paid for, and it's more about fraud. Well, that's where you talk about the processes that you have in place to validate your orders. That can be using something like 3D Secure, the extra checkout step where you're guaranteed to be protected from fraud, reason code chargebacks. We have other videos on the channel about that. You could talk about how you screen your orders. Maybe you call every customer where the order is more than $500. Let the payment processor know that you know what you're doing, that you're watching out for your best interests and their best interests. And that really, this all has to go, by the way, either in a phone call, which sometimes is hard to get. By the way, at merchantaccounts.ca, our customers always get the phone call because we're very human relationship focused, but I don't know who your processor is. Sometimes you have to work by email. You're trying to get to someone that cares and will listen to you and has the the ability to actually get what you want done, which is releasing your funds. And sometimes, if you're working with a very large, very bureaucratic processor, I have to acknowledge that can be very difficult. I cannot help if that's the situation. If that's the case, maybe you need to look for a new payment processor. But what you're trying to do is concisely tell your stories, condense on these points in an email or ideally a phone call, and let them know. And really don't be shy about communicating it. And then past that, we're kind of out in the sticks here. It can be sometimes as simple as maybe you own a cruise line and another cruise line, just failed. And there's a lot of risk about cruise lines right now. And so payment processors are being reactive. Or see, sometimes, unfortunately, it can be circumstantial. It might not even be reflecting on your business. Although I should be clear, this is very rare and would be more for large merchants. So really, in summary, it's like, how much money are they holding? Why are they holding it? Is it because your chargebacks have gotten out of control? Did they find out that you're not providing the services up front? Do they know how solid of a business you are? Do they know you're in good financial shape? Reach out, build that relationship. Boy, I skipped around a little bit on this video, but it's a challenging one to answer definitively because there's so many different reasons. So what I've really tried to help you understand is the concerns that the payment processor might have and why they might have those concerns, so you can anticipate and proactively try to address them when you inevitably get in touch with them. And you should get your money returned. I hope this was helpful. Thanks for watching. Have a nice day there. Bye now.